Okay, everybody, it's time to talk about my favorite class of animals, the cephalopods or cephalopodia. So these guys are a mollusk, but they're quite a bit different than everything else that we've talked about. The name cephalopod or cephalopoda literally translates into head foot. So members of this class, of course, are the octopus, the squid, the cuttlefish, and the chambered nautilus. Most of these you're somewhat familiar with. The chambered nautilus might be something that's a little bit different for you, but we'll talk about that guy. So all of these guys, all of these organisms are specialized for free swimming and predatory lifestyle. So they're very, very fast and they're very, very intelligent. And so as we start to talk about them, you'll see that the differences that they have with the other two classes that we talked about, the bivalves and the gastropods. These guys are different because of their adaptations to be fast, free-swimming predators. Now, as we look at the characteristics of these guys, first of all, their body consists of a head and a single foot. And that sounds funny because you're looking at this picture right here and you're seeing all of these 8 tentacles of the octopus right here. But technically, that is 1 foot that's been divided into 8 tentacles. Kind of like you have 1 hand that's been divided to 5 fingers. So the foot's been divided into tentacles. The number of tentacles depends on which of those cephalopods we're talking about. For the octopus, it's 8. The tentacles have powerful suction cups on them to grasp objects and to capture prey. And the suction cups can also sense things. They can literally, some of them like the octopus, can literally taste with their suction cups. Now, what that arrow is pointing to in the middle right there is their jaws, and they kind of look like a beak if you can see them up close, like a beak of a parrot, and so they actually do call them a beak. So cephalopods kill and eat their prey with the help of a pair of jaws that looks like the beak of a parrot. Many cephalopods can also release a cloud of ink into the water to distract predators. And believe it or not, they use that ink in food as well. So there's like an ink pasta that you can get that's pretty good. It looks kind of ugly, but it tastes good. And we'll have, over the next few days, we're going to be looking at a lot of different video clips of all of the classes of mollusk. And so you'll see some of this stuff in action. That cute little guy right there is a cuttlefish. Now, all cephalopods contain these specialized cells called chromatophores. And these are a pigment cell that can change color. And I'll be giving you a demonstration in class to show you how this works. But each of these little pigment cells, each of these little pockets of pigments, are surrounded by these tiny little microscopic muscles. And the muscles control whether that color is shown or not. Now, their circulatory system is a little bit different than the bivalves that we just got done talking about. So the cephalopods actually have a closed circulatory system. And the circulation of blood is enclosed inside a system of blood vessels. And that's what it means to be a closed circulatory system, is everything is inside, is enclosed in a system of blood vessels, like you and I. Now, there's some advantages of having a closed circulatory system, and these advantages will make sense if you think about what cephalopods are good at: swimming fast, predators. So a closed circulatory system transports fluids much more quickly than an open circulatory system. And what that means is that things like nutrients, oxygen, carbon dioxide can get carried more quickly to and from the tissues of the body. And ultimately, that increases the activity level of the organism. So again, they're fast predators. So having that closed circulatory system is an advantage to their activity level. Now, their nervous system is crazy cool. Scientists are learning all sorts of stuff about it all the time. The cephalopod brain is the largest and most advanced brain of any invertebrate on this planet. The octopus can learn to solve simple problems, can perform simple tasks, and can learn to differentiate between objects. And again, we're going to see a lot of examples of this. And I've talked to you about this in the past as well, because you guys know how much I love an octopus. Cephalopods also have well-developed eyes, which is different. Gastropods and bivalves, their eyes are not that developed. So these eyes are capable of forming images of objects. Now their reproductive system, they do have separate sexes. The male actually transfers packets of sperm from his mantle cavity to the mantle cavity of the female, and that's where fertilization occurs. So he actually uses one of his tentacles to transfer these packets of sperm. The female lays masses of fertilized eggs, and she guards the eggs until they hatch. And an octopus, that's the last thing that they do in their life, is the female will guard her fertilized eggs, and then her life comes to an end once those eggs hatch. Eggs hatch into juveniles. There is no trochophore larvae like there is with the other classes of mollusks. So when I say juvenile, that means that they hatch out into something that looks like the adult, just something small. Whereas that trochophore larvae, I showed it to you in the introduction to mollusk lecture that we did. And that larvae, remember, it's ciliated and it doesn't look anything like the adult. Now squid are also cephalopods, but these guys usually have 10 tentacles instead of 8 like an octopus. The 2 longest tentacles are used for capturing prey, and then the other 8 are used to force the prey into its mouth. These guys can vary in size, which I'll talk about in a second, but if we look at the basic design of a squid, they have these stabilizing fins on the posterior end of their body. This whole feature right here is the mantle. They do have a large, very, very specialized eye and a head. They have that parrot-like beak that we talked about, and then they have the 8 arms with these 2 extended tentacles. So most squid only grow to about a foot in length, but there's a giant squid that can reach the length, we think, of 60 feet. The giant squid is the largest known invertebrate. And again, we'll see some clips of this. They're not really well documented in the scientific world. But one thing, and I'll talk about this more in class, is one of the animals that likes to eat this giant squid is something called the sperm whale. And the sperm whale, when they try to eat a squid, the squid fights back. And so scientists can find scar marks on the head of the sperm whale that are perfectly circular, and they're from the suckers of these giant squids. So they've seen some scar marks of suckers from giant squids on sperm whales' heads, and they've been able to take the measurement of the diameter of that scar, and from that information they've been able to predict that this animal can reach up to 60 feet in length, which is crazy. It's like double the size of my classroom. Now the octopus, the coolest animal on our planet, has 8 tentacles, and most of these guys average 3 feet in length or less. The biggest one is the giant Pacific octopus, so you can see that up off the coast of Washington and Oregon, and also in Alaska. They can reach 30 feet, which is huge. The chambered nautilus, this really prehistoric looking creature, is awesome. There's even a hairy version of this that I'll show you in class. This is the only cephalopod that has retained its shell. So remember, mollusks have shells with the exception of cephalopods of squid and octopus, but this guy still has a shell. The shell is spiraled and is divided into a series of gas-filled chambers, and I have a sample of this in the classroom that I'll be showing you. It's really, really beautiful inside. And then they use these gas-filled chambers to float. So they'll fill up the chambers if they want to float higher, closer to the surface, and then they'll release gas out of these little chambers if they want to sink. So the soft body of the nautilus is confined to the outermost chamber, so the other chambers are filled with that gas. As it grows, it moves forward in its shell, and it fills the chamber left behind with gas. And like I was saying, the gas makes the Nautilus buoyant, which means it floats. They're pretty awkward swimmers. They're not quite as graceful as octopus and squid and cuttlefish. Now, we've been talking about mollusks, and so these last two slides I want to kind of focus on why are they important. So what roles do mollusks in general play in an ecosystem? So first of all, they play an important role in the food chains by serving as food for other organisms. That makes sense. Lots of things eat mollusks, including us humans. We like to eat clams, we like to eat scallops, oysters, mussels, and snails, and we also eat octopus and squid and all those other things too. One of the more important things is they're filter feeders, and like sponges that we talked about, phylum Porifera, in the beginning of the year, when they filter feed, they clean up their surroundings by filtering algae out of the water or by feeding on detritus, that's waste from other animals. And both of those actions lead to more clarity in the water. And in a coral reef, that's really important because that allows more sunlight to get to the coral reef, which allows for the corals to be more efficient at photosynthesis, which helps us all. Now, some mollusks are also host to symbiotic algae or to parasites, which is an important role in the ecosystem. And because filter feeding mollusks collect pollutants and microorganisms in their body tissues, they can be used to monitor water quality. Okay, so they can look at those tissues and see what kind of pollutants are concentrated in there to get an idea of how clean or not clean that particular area is. Okay, and that's all I want to talk about today with these guys. We're going to be talking about mollusks for a while, for like at least another week, week and a half. So we'll definitely be going into some more details and see some cool examples of these critters. Okay, all right, that's it, guys. Talk to you later.